Okay, so on this lesson, let's discuss objects creation and navigation here in 3ds Max. So in creating objects, it is important that you create your objects here in the top viewport. Reason for this is simple. When you create objects at the top viewport, they are properly oriented or they are upright. Or that means the objects created on the top viewport are standing up. So their orientations are correct. But if you will create, for example, another teapot, but this time at the front viewport, object the object or the teapot itself will be lying down, as you can see here, and even as you can see at the top. The same thing will happen if you create a teapot, let's say here at the side view, and that's what's going to happen. The teapot is also lying down but facing a different direction. So that is the importance of creating objects at the top viewport so that they will be in proper orientation or standing up. Next thing, let's maximize this. We will talk about the navigational shortcuts of 3ds Max later. But here, for example, in the create, so this is the create panel, this is your objects type panel, and then here in the options are the objects that you can create. Well, if for example I choose let's say another teapot, and then I'll go and turn on the auto grid, see what happens here is it will allow me to create the teapot onto the surface or align to the surface of an existing object. For example, the teapot, right? So that is the auto grid option. So if I, for example, go back, turn that off, I will create the teapot and it will go back to the original grid or to the home grid orientation. Now let's say I'll click the cylinder, I'll turn on the auto grid, and as you can see here, I can create a cylinder aligned to a surface of the teapot. As long as that auto grid is on, it will continue to do so. But let's say I turn it off and then I go back to the current grid. Okay, so that's an example of creating objects here in 3ds Max. You can also try doing keyboard entries. This usually is done, for example, if there are particular descriptions or coordinates or locations and sizes for the objects to be created. For example, I want to create a cylinder that is, let's say, 20 in radius and let's say 100 in height. Let's see what will that do if I click create, and then the cylinder is created. Okay, so those are the ways or some of the ways that you can create objects here in 3ds Max. There will be more as you explore it, but this time let's talk about the navigation. How do we view the objects that we have created here in 3ds Max? How do we view them? For example, what I have done earlier, um, I have done this. I have maximized and restored my viewport. So that means this chosen viewport, no, I can Alt W, that's the shortcut, Alt W, and it will maximize, Alt W, and it will resize. Also, if I press Alt W, and remember, just remember the initials of the viewports. For example, here, that's the front. Remember the initial F. Here top view, remember the initial T, and here left view, remember the initial L. Now, and even here perspective, remember the initial P. So those initials of the top, front, left, and even perspective viewport can be pressed in the keyboard and you will immediately be on that view. For example, I press left, so it goes to the left view. I press T, goes to the top. I press F, goes to the front, and then P, perspective. That is if you would like to switch views without pressing Alt W. No? It means also Alt W, you can maximize the viewport that you are hovering over. For example, I can Alt W here at the front just by hovering over it. So I can also visit the views anytime. Okay, so that is for navigating. Sorry, let us go for example the mouse control such as the scroll. The scroll allows you to zoom in, zoom out, and then also you can press and hold the scroll or the middle mouse button. Press and hold it and it will allow you to pan the view. So I can move the view of it. So that is a combination, a scroll and then a pan. I can also do this. I can select an object and I can just press letter Z for zoom. So that means that is zoom selected. You can easily click an object for it to be selected and press Z and then it zooms in. I can also, for example, select this one and then press Z. That is zoom selected. I can press Ctrl D to deselect that. And now, let's say I can also do this. I can select, for example, this one. Let me just move it far away. So whenever I do this. Here, for example, you are seeing all the objects in your scene, but you can see and you can, but you are missing one object. You're missing the big cylinder. And it happens, nangyayari yon, that you forgot where it is or you um, you either hid it, no, or you placed it from afar. So for you to find missing objects, you can press Control A to select all, and then you can press letter Z. There. Control A, letter Z, or Control D, letter Z. It will allow you or it will show you all of the objects in the scene. So that is zoom extents. No? I can deselect, nothing is selected, and then I can press letter Z, that is zoom extents. Or I can click one of the objects and press letter Z, that is zoom selected. So please keep that in mind. No? Next, I can also press Alt and then the middle mouse button. Again, let me go back there. Alt and then the left click, Alt. Where's the Alt there? Alt and then the middle mouse button. Alt and the middle mouse button allows me to do what? A view rotate. I can view the bottom, the top, left and right, and even perspective view by doing a view rotate. Again, press Alt and then drag the middle mouse. And that is your view rotate. Now, I advise you to do the view rotate only here in the perspective view. You can perform the view rotate in the front view, but it will get broken. Keep that in mind. No? Um, the viewports usually glitches if you are always doing rotations on orthographics. These are the orthographic views. They are supposed to be within those view angles only. The perspective view is the 360 view, or this is actually the preview of the model, no, that you are working on. Okay. Next, after I press Alt W to maximize this and also restore, I can also press F3 and then F4. F3, F4, no, F3, F4 allows you to go for wireframe mode, no, which at some point is a level of transparency for the object. And also, you can see the edge and faces mode, no, by pressing F3 and F4. These are important for later procedure in polygonal modeling. Okay. Next, for example, if an object is blocking your sight or view, no, of another object. So I know the initial idea would be to delete, no? As easy as that. But here, if the object is important or you are not allowed to delete any models, so you can just select the object, right click it, and hide the selection. Or here at our object list, you can easily select the object and then you can also press hide from here. Okay, so that is one example of hiding and unhiding an object. And also here, we will talk about this later. This is the selection list or the object list. No, for this object list in 3ds Max. Okay, so far, and the navigation, I can also go for um, Control Alt X. Control Alt X is the expert mode or expert view. No, it will hide all of the tools, all of the tabs, all of the lists that you might need later on, but it gives you a full view and a bigger view of modeling. That's why sometimes I use the Control Alt X. And also when you press Control Alt X, you will be returned to the usual or default UI. Okay, so that is for our creation and navigation in 3ds Max. I'll see you on the next video.